My name's Alex. I chose Chapter 6, Surely Doomed. I'm going to be focusing on Charlie, a 14-year-old from Alabama, and the chapter starts with George, the mother's boyfriend, the mother of Charlie, so the mother's boyfriend, coming to the house, obviously drunk, and the two get into an argument. George hits the mother so hard that she starts to bleed, and then he goes to take a nap. So Charlie sees this, and Charlie is freaking out and runs to the bedroom where the only phone is in the house. And he remembers that there's a pistol in the drawer, and he grabs the pistol and shoots George in the head. And then he's arrested for murder. He's put into a jail with men, and the court system is basically the one or the group in control here. And they're basing their actions on possibly his skin color and possibly the fact that he's poor. There's no like direct evidence that he is of color or he is in fact poor, but it's just kind of a hunch based on the treatment that he's received. The first quote that I chose was, "The prosecutor did not dispute the account that Charlie and his mother had given. It was only when I continued reading that I discovered that George was a local police officer." So Bryan Stevenson found out that the story or what had happened to the child and the mother was not being used as evidence or was not being used in making a decision, and that George was a police officer. And so the court most likely deliberately made this decision to keep George's appearance, that he was a good police officer, that he was a good man because he was a police officer, which is not right, which is unfair. The fact that the court put, or I mean, maybe it wasn't the court, maybe it was just the police. I'm not exactly sure, but police, court, either one, they put him in a jail with men. And the second quote is really upsetting. There were so many last night. I don't know how many there were, but they hurt me. While talking with Charlie, Bryan Stevenson immediately thought this child was abused and raped. And it even says in the book that he was angry. He was angry and that he was baffled how something like that would happen. He told the court that they need to put him in a juvenile facility and he needs to be protected. Which is understandable. He never should have been in the jail to begin with. He never should have been there to begin with. He should have been placed in a juvenile facility. But I guess because he was charged with murder, the court just thought, it's acceptable to put this child in a jail with adults. So the court system here is kind of controlling Charlie's future and basically deeming him as a criminal. While reading this chapter, it kind of made me think of Marian Edelman in her article, The Cradle to Prison Pipeline, where she basically described children who were at an intersection of poor and, colored, are at the most risk for being treated poorly by educational systems, by the court systems, and that is really evident in this chapter, that the court system is basically saying that Charlie is a criminal. More underliningly, it's my own interpretation, but it almost seems as though the court is giving Charlie, or wants to give Charlie, the death penalty because he killed, most likely, a white cop. Right? He killed a white cop, or he killed the cop in general. And the court wants to keep the cop's appearance up, right? Um, so tying all that in, the example of cultural hegemony is within that court system, where they are trying to dictate this child's life and basically trying to prosecute him for death row based on his color and based on poverty, right? An indicator that maybe he's poor is the fact that an elderly couple come in and try to take care of him and try to help him. And something that the woman says, I think I really agree with, is we've been through a lot, Brian, all of us. I know that some have been through more than others, but if we don't expect more from each other, hope better for one another, and recover from the hurt we experience, we are surely doomed. And this quote is a response to something Bryan Stevenson said. Bryan Stevenson said, "Don't expect much from Charlie. Don't expect him to be happy and childlike, right? Don't expect too much from him." And the woman was like, "No, like you kind of have to expect people to do better for themselves, or hope better for that person. Because if you don't and you just treat them like what they had done is all that they ever will be, that's what they'll become. They won't move on, they won't progress in most cases, right? If you treat someone like a problem, what do they become? A problem, or not a problem, but they become troubled, right? They're not a problem. They just become troubled. The quotes I chose are on pages 120 and 124. Oh, and 126. That's the last one, where the woman is saying how you kind of need him. You need to expect more from him, more from Charlie. That's everything.